This is your 2 News Oklahoma Fantasy Football Forecast.
Yeah! Whoa!
Sorry, I wanted to start off with some energy.
I was going to say, we've got a great intro, and then I heard that. Do we?
A lot of exuberance from the loser of the weekend.
Yes.
Trying to overcompensate.
Yeah. Not that I can say much. I lost big in our league.
2 of us are losers
right.
here.
Yeah.
Except Caden.
Just the one winner.
3-0, Caden.
3-0. Not the best starting group in the league. That is definitely either Team DeMaria or I believe Team Wood. They are kind of running away with it. But yes, I was able to start enough quality players to beat Team Collier by some 28 points. 4 touchdowns is what we'll call that. And could have been more if I hadn't left Devontae on my bench. Devontae Smith, 31 points.
Oh yeah, top.
Feels pretty good to beat Team Collier. If I'm being honest,
not many
feels pretty good.
Not many leave the top performer at their position on the bench.
Not many can afford to do that.
But
here's the thing: I think I taught him a lesson. I think he's going to be just head like what you saw Sunday.
He had to prove you wrong.
Head down. That's right. He had to prove me wrong. He did, and now we might just be riding with Team Devontae. Tough to. I was certainly. I think that my tongue lashing with regard to one CD Lamb last night within earshot of Mike Collier in the studio.
Not having CD Lamb.
What happened? What happened almost immediately after that tongue lashing, Mike?
He was like, "Yeah, Kane, you don't know what you're talking
Tony
about."
Robbins stuff going on.
right here. I'm gonna put up 22 points in fantasy, and make you eat crow 12 minutes later.
I would have traded CD Lamb for a sack of potatoes last night at about 9:07. And now I'm not sure you can pry him from my cold dead hands. So.
I know. I was so tempted when I saw him to score the touchdown to send him, like an offer of, Damian Harris for CD Lamb.
Would have considered it prior.
Well, and that's where we're at. We're in this weird part of the season now where, like, you can see players and teams sort of getting into their groove, but at the same time, there's so many injuries. There's so many, other factors. Like, we thought the Bills were unstoppable, right? Mm-hmm. And then it turns out all you need to have is the field be a billion degrees, and they can be stopped.
That is what a ball game, what a finish, what a reaction from Ken Dorsey. I just loved everything about that, and it is this great reminder about what I love the absolute most about sports. It's a drama without a script, and as much as we think we know, we don't necessarily know, and we're reminded of it weekly in the game of football, which is fun. Now, that said, I will take any of your Bills players that you might want to pawn off or sell off. I mean, like a Josh Allen still. Is there any more of a sure bet week to week than that guy, right? I mean, that is an unstoppable group in terms of at least going up and down the field. Granted, didn't find the end zone enough to win on Sunday, but Josh Allen and everything about that Bills offense is pretty spectacular.
So think about this. If you have a team consisting of Jalen Hurts in a 2 QB league here, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Cooper Kupp, you are most likely just saying, you know what, every week I have a base of about 75, 80 points. That's it.
Yeah, nobody else matters.
Put some goobers in there and I actually played a team like that just those are the 3 he has, and then goobers the rest away. And then goobers get 10 points. I mean, that's, all those other spots adding up. You're back up to 130, 150 each week.
Sure.
Guaranteed almost.
And, coming into the season, that would not have shocked you with regard to Cooper Kupp or Josh Allen. But that Jalen Hurts is being talked about as an MVP candidate. That Jalen Hurts is in just one half of play now in back-to-back weeks, doing everything you need for your fantasy team.
Yeah.
Did not see it coming. I think at this point, and granted, a lot of it has to do with the players around him, but he's better than Baker, obviously.
Oh,
he's
Baker.
He's better than He's better than Kyler, guys. Like this, Jalen. You think otherwise?
So far this season, that's what it looks like.
I think Kyler's better. I do.
Here's what I say with regard to Kyler. When his legs are fresh in September, and he can run around like the 2-point conversion a couple of weeks ago. He can be absolutely spectacular, and no doubt with Kingsbury, I mean, the numbers will be there.
They had him run once the whole entire game, not until the fourth quarter.
Thank you.
So they don't. It's the coaching.
To me, it's the size. It's his body. His body can't hold up. So yes, the talent is there for things that are just otherworldly. But even if you compare him to, let's say, Lamar Jackson, who I think is just a little bit longer, but also I think a little bit more wiry, I just feel better about Lamar Jackson running the ball 10 or 11 times each week.
Sure.
With Kyler, you never want to do it. With Jalen, you do, right? And so he has shown that his body can hold up to the – now, sort of, right? I mean, this isn't a 10-year sample size.
But let's be honest, Kyler hasn't been that hurt, in the past couple of years. He hasn't missed a good chunk. I think Cliff needs to go. I think that's the Arizona Cardinals issue. Look, Marquise Brown lit it up. I mean, Kyler threw over 300 yards.
No, I'll say sure. Greg Dortch was my best performer this week.
No doubt.
Picked him up last week. He scored 17 points and was, in a week that I lost big. Diggs is my go-to, my number one guy.
Yeah.
Cramps up on the field, just in and out in that fourth quarter. He said on a show today, it's the first time, it's the most tired he'd ever been. And that it's the first time he had IVs in both arms on the sideline, just trying to get fluids in and recover from that heat in Miami where, they have the opposing team on the sideline or on the sun-filled sideline the whole time, So Greg Dortch, my top guy, and I have him as one of my go-to waiver wire pickups this week if he's still available. Which, as of yesterday, he was only on 7.3% of ESPN rosters, so he's out there for people to get.
Yeah, when Rondale comes back, that's going to be interesting.
Right.
But I mean, look, Greg is putting up for sure. Mac Hollins, oh boy, that guy's been everywhere and anywhere. Romeo Dobbs, he is Dobbs.
Yeah, Dobbs.
Yeah, I know. In the offseason, everybody call him Dobbs, and it gets
I was
in
saying
your head.
Doobs yesterday.
Yeah, Dobbs. He is the beat is saying that he could be the wide receiver one for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I watched that entire ball game, and certainly early in the game, you could see that, looks pretty good.
He does.
And, Lazard was the guy that Rodgers went to on the second touchdown. But, Rodgers is going to be throwing to someone. And that's where my head should have been, I think, early in the year. Not necessarily with Lazard, who I ended up with in one of my leagues. But who could be that next guy? And that is Dobbs. Yeah,
I traded Alexander Madison, who could be your number one waiver wire potentially. It looks like Dalvin might play, but you need to have Madison. Somebody needs to have Madison on their bench, no matter what. It shouldn't already be coming to this waiver wire. But I traded him for Dobbs. And I just, saw long-term potential there and took that opportunity while I could, while Madison's name was kind of sizzling. And that's what you kind of do with fantasy,
Sure.
Take that value, which is considered high at one time, and, go cash it in while you can.
Buy low, sell high.
And
exactly.
Another guy who did really well this week and has been slowly progressing into this, Trevor Lawrence, who, Mike, you were really high on to start the year. Before we even had our draft or anything, you were really high on Trevor Lawrence, and now everybody obviously coming around. You see them go out there and beat the Chargers head-to-head, Justin Herbert. Even though Justin Herbert getting like a needle stuck in his ribs before the game starts just to be able to go out there. But Trevor Lawrence, 25 points on the day. Just looked super sharp. He seems, him and Christian Kirk, instantly are having this connection.
Yeah.
So, for people who took that advice to start, hey, trust Trevor Lawrence, they're probably feeling pretty good. I know in my league with my friends, they, I drafted Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Woof.
Yeah.
But,
Whoa, buddy.
Trevor Lawrence has actually been on the waiver wire in this league because it's not a 2 QB league. So,
I got you.
So he's been there. So that was my first pick. Last night I was like, waiver wire, got to get this guy because Russ is out for me.
Sure.
He's out.
Yeah. Feel vindicated, Collier?
Well, here's the deal. I do just for this week because all the talking heads prior to this game is like he's going to do horrible against the Chargers.
Right.
He ain't going to do anything against the Chargers, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes out and puts up an incredible week. So that I like, still we got to go long. He's got to go to the Eagles this week. That will be tough.
Sure.
I don't care who you are. It's going to be a tough game. So this will be another test for him.
Yeah, I mean, if this was a one quarterback league and he was my only quarterback, you'll be riding that wave. I mean, he is still young, but
sure,
they found the right head coach, and I think we've said this multiple times on this show now. You can't hold anything that happened in his rookie season against him because
people did.
It was an absolute tire fire. Yeah, they did. People made up their mind on Trevor Lawrence, which is nuts when you even forget even watching his college career. If you've simply seen this guy warm up, that's what you want it to look like, right? I mean, that's what a 15-year starter in the NFL looks and throws like. If this were a keeper league, I mean, you would be just over the moon with the fact that you were able, when people were selling him, you were able to buy low and he is the rising tide that, is rising all shit. I think I said that wrong, but there are now Jacksonville players that are worth so much more. Kirk, for instance, who has always been really spotty in terms of up and down. To me, he feels like a guy who I bet you this year the consistency is at a level it's never been at for him. Because I think Peterson and Lawrence, it's going to be a pretty killer combo.
Well, and it's so balanced there too. Like James Robinson has had a great year so far. Like he's one of the top running backs in fantasy. In any league that you have, both catching, running, the whole thing. So having that balanced attack has got to be. And it's so strange they have like all of these same returning players from last year, minus like Kirk, and the offense is just runs so smoothly.
38 points against the Chargers,
right?
Yeah, and in Charger land. So
yes.
Yeah,
wow.
We'll see. It'll be interesting to see this weekend he goes to Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's right.
That's going to be a tough one no matter what. Philly will be. It could be a really high-scoring game.
Could be.
But I don't know what the line is on that.
And for that reason, so one of the dilemmas I have, because I did, luck out in the draft, and so I do have decisions to make every single week. I have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and left Devontae on my bench, and, he would have produced more than anybody.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that's interesting for me with regard to, that dilemma, if you were to have both of those guys, I think Jacksonville's good enough to push Philadelphia. They've basically been able to shut down the offense at halftime the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
I'm not sure that'll be the case this week.
Hope not.
I think if you have players on both sides in that ball game, they'll be trying to score points for all four quarters, which, can be a big part of, winning in fantasy. Not just how good are your players, but how long do they have to be interested in, trying to score?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a great question. And I know you took my advice on Devonta. But, I still stick with it that he is not – I mean, look, first week, goose egg. I think
good point.
He's going to have the boomer bust weeks.
Sure.
AJ's old trusty for Jalen. He's playing the slot a lot. You're not going to have all these, incredibly 160-yard days or whatever it is. But, look, I'm not trying to,
but some of
bones,
the catches he made last week,
frail bones, you're right. Yeah.
No, good point. As long as he's healthy, I think the skill set is just, and he's not they're not gonna roll double coverage at him very much with AJ on the field and with everything else that Hurts has out there too.
And going into the season, Hurts would never look left throwing. So, he would only make it to his first and second progression. He would never go left. And on the very occasion that he did, he couldn't throw it. So he's doing that this year. Like, he's upped his game. So going into the season, that's why I was like, AJ, sure, he's going to be his release valve. But, give Jalen credit. He's got it going on.
Yeah.
So,
I think that is it's getting close to, I don't want to say unstoppable, but what I mean to say is just a really dependable, consistent fantasy performer. That Philadelphia offense. I think you can feel good about all of those guys that we've mentioned so far, week to week, having them in your lineup. And I still haven't played Devontae yet. I need to.
And like another one of those sort of things, we talked last week about how good the Dolphins players have been, because you can always count on guys like Tyreek Hill.
Except last weekend, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
You're going to have those weeks. Look at Justin Jefferson.
Right. And I was talking about Russell Wilson earlier in my one league. I cut him. He's gone.
Right.
Like, how soon is too soon for me to be judging these players like a Russell Wilson where I'm like, you know what?
Too soon.
I'm out.
New offense. I mean, he's been with the same offense for, 12 years or whatever. It's going to take time. New head coach. He's still learning it took, I think, Peyton Manning even like 3 games to get in sync when he got to Denver. And then we know how that season ended. It was truly amazing. So look, but Russell, the problem with Russell is he needs legs and he looks a little washed in that area.
Right.
So now he's becoming one-dimensional.
Agreed.
And I don't know. So I mean, look, I understand I'd want to cut him too, but I think maybe we need to give him another week or two.
And it's tough because I comboed him in that league with Jerry Jeudy. Like I drafted Jeudy first, and then like a round or two later, I was like, oh, Russ is there. It was probably a reach for where I was at in the draft because like Russell Wilson has been sort of hit or miss the last couple of seasons. But I was like, well, combo that with Jeudy. It's a nice little, point. Obviously the touchdowns are going to be counting for more points on my team with them.
Yeah.
But even Jeudy, when they're both out there together, when Jeudy is healthy, which he's struggled with a little bit, but they don't seem to be in sync.
I like your pickup, though. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, yeah, okay, that's valid. Absolutely. Move on. T-Law is going to be great. But, I mean, look, Geno, Cooper Rush, whatever. If you're chopping Russ right now for them, hold on a couple more weeks. Give it some more time.
Okay, indulge me this before I have to go pick up my kid real quick. Let's go down the list of fantasy quarterback rankings.
Okay,
and see kind of where the line is for you on Russell, who you wouldn't give him up for. Fair all right, according to this, he started the year at number 8. Obviously, we can agree he's not at 8. So let me just jump down to like 14, 15.
Okay,
all right. 14, Kirk Cousins. Would you roll with Russell or Kirk? Okay. Carr.
I'd take Carr because he's more consistent. Yeah. Like Russ is very boom or bust even when he's on his game.
All right. This one's pretty easy, I think. 16, Tua.
Yep.
Okay. Trevor Lawrence at 18.
Tila.
Yeah. Jameis Winston at 19. Are we sticking with Russell now, or are we going with Jameis Winston?
Maybe go with Winston because we know he's going to be throwing it a lot.
He's going to throw a lot.
Yeah.
He's going to rack up yards. Okay. Matty Ice, Matt Ryan. I mean, that's ugly, right?
Russ, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
Matty Ice needs to put his birthday or his retirement cake out there and just call it a day.
Thank you. Okay. So those are the depths that Russell Wilson has fallen
that's
to.
Bad.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll throw in just a couple. Ryan Tannehill. Would you go with him or Russell Wilson?
I think I think of him similar to Derek Carr in that he's just consistent. Like his floor is pretty high.
Yeah.
But his ceiling.
But rest of the year, you have to have either Ryan Tannehill or Russell Wilson. I'd roll the dice.
I'd
roll the
go
dice
Tannehill.
on Russ. Would you really?
I'd probably go Tannehill.
Okay. You might end up being right. Last name Jared Goff. Roll with Goff. You'd roll with Goff.
This season, like if
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I'm on St. Brown out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
in this league that I'm talking about, if Lawrence wouldn't have been available, Goff was available, and I was gonna take him and drop Russ. But
it's been relatively consistent. I mean, it's certainly been better than what we've seen with Denver. But to Mike's point, I mean, we're talking about Russell Wilson, and we are talking about the first 3 games. And what you said about his legs concerns me greatly, but it's still Russell Wilson.
That's why Seattle got rid of him. They're like, we see it. Let's cash out. Yeah. Let's cash in while we can.
Him and Carson Wentz, when it comes to the Red Zone channel, watching get sacked more than anyone. That like they'll cut into the game, sack, cut out.
And then Daniel Jones with his 80 sacks.
Yeah.
Yep. Golly, New York. I don't know. But you know, have another one on your list, and that's Herbert. Is it Khalil Herbert or is it A Bear? I'm just kidding. Khalil Herbert, 30.9 points. That should be number 1 on your waiver wire if he's out there. Grab that guy. He's always done well when he's gone in.
Even when Montgomery is playing, he's still getting touches. He's still putting up points.
Yeah, but with Montgomery out, you got RB1. Mark Andrews did amazing. I get so tired of the same people doing well every year because especially when they're beating me. I mean, Mark Andrews is he ever not Sherlock?
I mean, if you were someone who took Lamar and Mark Andrews, man, that's
buddy.
just
you're enjoying September. No question.
Yeah. All right, so we've got Montgomery out, DeAndre Swift, and remember we talked about this is my concern. I traded him in the offseason. I got tired of holding on to some every week going, okay, is he going to play this week? And if he does, will he get all the snaps that he's supposed to get? I got tired of it, and I'm glad I'm off that train.
Agreed.
All right.
I mean, you're the Detroit Lions fan, so I thought maybe you were going to jump in, but
You get out of here.
Okay.
You're gone.
Boys, be well.
Yep, you too.
So when it comes to DeAndre Swift, this year it's been less like devastating injuries, more like little tweaks here and there, which are still super frustrating, especially when you're trying to make decisions for your team's future.
Sure, right.
So like I drafted in our league Jamal Williams. I'm starting him this week.
Yeah,
if
you should.
Even if they're like, well, Swift will play, but it'll be limited, I'm starting Jamal Williams. Because this past week, 24.7 points, 87 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He's not anywhere near as explosive as Swift.
So I got a poll for a trivia question for you.
Sure.
All right. So Jamal Williams has had 690 carries his whole entire career. Okay. How many 25 yards or more carries has he ever had in his career? Out of 690.
I would guess like 2.
Oh, wow. You're really close. 1.
Really?
Yeah. How many plus 50?
0. I wouldn't take any. Yeah.
So I mean,
no, and like the guy, heart and soul of that team as far as like culture,
no doubt.
rah guy.
Yeah.
But
word of the wise, when he fills in for Swift completely, I don't know. There's some weird. It's like he's a competitive guy. He sees this ultra young stud back behind him. He's like, I'll outprove him. And then when he's gone, he's like, well, okay, I got no one to. Craig Reynolds.
Yeah, and that could be the case where like they mix in a lot more of Craig Reynolds and Jamar Jefferson's still on the practice squad. Maybe they bring him.
I
up
like Jamar Jefferson.
Right?
I do personally.
Maybe they bring him up if they completely rule Swift out.
Jamar is a very Swift-like. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, very like super explosive. Like makes good decisions in the open field. But
Craig would remind me more of Jamal.
Right. It's sort of similar, but maybe they mix in Craig a little bit for some of those downs in the middle of the field. Keep doing what they're doing with Jamal, bringing him in the red zone, goal line situations where he's just been stealing all these touchdowns from DeAndre Swift.
All of them.
Right. So that's the case there. Amon-Ra St. Brown's in the same regard. He tweaked his ankle a little bit during that game. They haven't ruled him either way. He's listed as questionable, but we'll see how he practices this coming week.
They've got brittle bones.
Ooh, yeah. Sterling Shepard out for the season.
Poor guy.
Yeah,
I mean, I know a lot of OU fans here, but that guy just cannot stay healthy.
It's terrible. I think they officially ruled him out today. I think it was an ACL issue, but yeah, terrible for him.
Dalvin!
And he's their best receiver, Sterling Shepard. So it's and what does that say?
Yeah, what happened to Galladay? Isn't that funny? It's like he checked out.
And they're paying him all this money, and he's not doing anything.
Can't catch.
But yeah, and then so I think you had mentioned Dalvin Cook earlier. If Alexander Mattison is available, or if you got him on your bench, if Cook's not starting, he's got to go in.
Sure, absolutely. Do we care about Mac Jones? Does anybody really care?
I mean, maybe for leagues like ours where you're like maybe if he was your second quarterback or something like that.
Boy, if you draft him as your second quarterback, you need to check yourself.
Yeah, it's tough.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's my – no, I'm just
kidding. Right. So Brian Hoyer will be the starter there, somehow still floating around in this league. 11 consecutive starting losses for Brian Hoyer.
Wow. I think it's time for Bill Belichick to go.
And people like it was that thing when Brady left, right? Like, what was all the success Brady or Belichick? It's leaning Brady.
I think it's the ship is sinking Brady.
Right.
Billy B is can't even name an offensive coordinator. I mean, like,
right, and it's just like, the draft decisions have always been strange, and before it was like, oh, that's the Patriot way, the free agent signings, they like wouldn't pay any of their guys anything because they're like, oh, we'll bring somebody else in here, they'll be just as good.
Yeah,
Brady leaves, suddenly that decision making doesn't check out.
Yeah, they're paying millions to the tight ends that can't even catch the ball.
Right. They have like 3 different tight ends who used to be like, like starting caliber guys on other teams, and they went to this Patriots team, like a Hunter Henry or like a Jonnu Smith. Yeah. We were like, okay, these guys, like fantasy wise, they're putting up numbers.
Yeah. And then
nothing as soon as they go there.
I going through the Eagles, Andy Reid in his last few years, he named an offensive line coordinator as their defensive coordinator. And it just started getting weird. And then they let him go, and he kind of had that time to reflect and say, you know what? I think I got a little too confident, per se. I needed to step back. I think Bill Belichick needs to take a year off if he wants to still coach. and reanalyze that he's not God's greatest gift to China.
Yeah, it's a weird look for him going forward, especially if this is another season that ends up going in the tank, where they're not making the playoffs and they're just like, where do you go from here? Because you have what would be your quarterback of the future, but that is Mac Jones. That we don't even know based on what he's surrounded with. You can't even tell.
Yeah, the Ravens shouldn't be coming into your place and beating you. It shouldn't be happening.
And then for those who are stuck with quarterback issues, Zach Wilson is on track to be back this week.
I think a lot of people don't want him back.
Well, and I thought that before, and then Joe Flacco went out there and put up a dud against the Bengals, and it's like, well, okay, maybe
that's true.
Maybe there's reason to at least still want change. And if you get to the end of this year and you still don't know what you have in Zach Wilson, you're in that sort of purgatory of, well, do we need to take another quarterback, even though we have this one that we don't really know what we have yet?
Right. That's true. It's true. And so, the Cowboys last night, they won. They beat the Giants. Both of those teams just don't look that great. I don't even know how they're going to compete against the Eagles. I know I'm an Eagles fan, but
I think they'll walk right through that division. There's not much competition there.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Colts look horrible. I don't know what's going on with the Chiefs. I saw Mahomes argue with Coach Bellamy on the sideline. Bieniemy.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder because it had always been like, oh, well, how is Bieniemy not getting all these head coaching offers, And then you see that happen on the sideline, and you whatever. Like, I'm sure there's that kind of bickering on teams all the time, especially with guys who both think they're very right.
Yeah, right.
But then, I saw, I think it was LaShawn McCoy, who played for the Chiefs a little bit toward the end of his career, and he had tweeted or posted on Instagram or something like, hey, Bieniemy has no idea what he's doing out there. And, that's coming from one player. I don't know if there's other players out there who think, but he reposted that video and said, hey, look, this is what is actually going on all the time. So I don't know if that's an issue going forward for Kansas City because he's been the OC there for a while.
Yeah, right. He has.
So we've seen this offense work. So how could it just stop working? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, in that game, a lot of goofy thing, like Kelsey dropped a touchdown pass that would have put the Chiefs up.
Right.
Right. So there's a lot of
that was
weird,
a goofy game.
Right. And I feel like the Colts are just constantly involved in goofy games.
Yeah. They are. So we talked about the waiver wires, real briefly. Greg Dortch, Matt Collins, Romeo Dobbs, and Alexander Madison, Herbert. If he's available, you got to go for him. Outside of that, do you think of anybody else on the top of your head?
Off the top,
I
don't
pretty
think
low.
It's tough. There's a lot of guys who didn't perform. A lot of top fantasy starters who didn't perform super well this past week, which led to a lot of just across the three leagues I'm in, a lot of lower scores, overall for teams. Unless of course you're the team with Lamar Jackson, like we said. But for the most part, a lot of lower scores than in the last couple weeks. And maybe that was just because the last couple weeks there was so much scoring, and this week just not as much with the players that you're used to putting up huge numbers.
I would suggest is to keep churning your bench. That bench is to keep getting, taking those shots on those players. But like an Alexander Madison, a secure RB1 that's going to come in, you need to keep that guy on your bench at all times. The rest of the guys, put Dortch on there. See if he works. If he fails, get rid of him the next week. Bring someone else in. The first week I picked Curtis Samuel. And, man, he's number 8.
He just keeps going.
He just keeps going. And so you might land upon it if you just keep churning that bench down there. But you also have to be careful, too, because at times I've churned so much that the guys I used to have are like, oh, man, I had him on my bench.
Right.
I just wasn't patient enough.
Yeah, it's tough, and especially if you're like me and you're always thinking in the way oh, I know this running back's going to get hurt, so I'm going to hold on to his backup all season long, and then I'm just wasting a bench spot for somebody who could be better. But
when you could add a Greg Dortch,
right?
I just like saying his name,
right? So I'm holding on to an Eno Benjamin or a Darrell Williams, just waiting for James Conner to go out, and not hoping for his injury, but maybe he'll tweak an ankle.
Yeah, right. I get it, man. I'm with you 100%. Well, I mean, I think we wrapped everything. Good job this week, Ryan, on losing. And hopefully you'll have better luck on Sunday. Are we playing each other?
No, we're not playing each other. I looked earlier, and I can't remember who. I know Caden is playing Annie Brown. Let me check our...
Downtown Annie Brown. That's her name. So real quick, next week, do I have to play Nick? I hope not. Nick would. Oh, I got to play Chris DiMaria, former Channel 2 colleague now who has moved on to his own. But he's projected to beat me by 136 to 115. I think with some roster swaps I'm about to do, I think I can come in and beat him this Sunday. And one more thing, most of my games Sunday are at noon, which is I like to spread it out.
Yeah, I'm that way. Like I think we had talked about before, hate having guys on Thursdays.
Yes.
I hate, for the most part, do not want any Thursday action
unless they
plate.
go crazy off. Then
right, and like this week, the Thursday night game this week is Dolphins at Bengals.
Yeah, that will be interesting.
Yeah,
and they're going to wear all their white uniforms. So,
yeah. So that's on Thursday, and then we've got
a Europe game.
There is
England.
We check the lineup Saturday night if you're not planning on being up Sunday morning because you are going to miss out. I mean, one, it's the Saints. Not a lot of huge.
Justin Jefferson though with the Vikings.
But, right, Vikings. Yeah. Justin Jefferson, and you'll want to if Dalvin Cook is going to be a game time decision in London, you're gonna want to be paying attention at like 7:30 a.m. Central Time.
Exactly, and don't forget Sunday morning. I'm doing the weather from 8. I've got to check what time that is on air too, but I'm going to be on Sunday morning, so I will be doing the weather and keeping one eye on the fantasy. I hope the boss isn't listening this much. Brittany, we love you, by the way. We think you're an incredible boss.
That's right. And so you have a ton of noon games, and then we have Sunday Night Football this week, Chiefs at Buccaneers, so that should be a good one.
See, I don't own a lot of Chiefs or Bucks. Hopefully Chris Godwin comes back. He's been out long enough now.
And Mike Evans should be back. It was only a one-game suspension for him, so he should be back.
And that's another thing. Quick on Brady. Buy low on Brady if you can. Once he get his guys back, people are like, he's old, washed. They got that mindset. But, boy, once he gets his guys back, he's going to be back to elite status. I have a good feeling on that. So buy low on Brady if you can.
Absolutely. So we will come back next week, and we'll see how all these things shake out. And for Mike Collier,
Caden
McFarland going to pick up his kid, I'm Ryan Love, and we'll see you next week.